going to go ahead and call the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission meeting to order for June 6, 2012. This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel, and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Right. This meeting is closed caption and will be repeated Saturday, June 9th at noon on Channel 14. A video copy will be available for checkout from any library branch. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located at the podium and hand it to the clerk. So with that, I will ask clerk to call the roll, please.
Morin.
Here.
Turner.
Here.
Detrick.
Here.
Walter from McClashen.
Here.
McCarty. Natoli. Schmidt for Peters.
Here.
Chenier. Cerna.
Here.
Sheedy. Chong for Yi.
Here.
And ex officio McGarvey.
Here.
Very good. And would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and with that, jumping right into the agenda, item number 1 is closed session agenda item. Do we need to read that for the record, or just, okay.
Okay. Item number 1 is conference with legal counsel on existing litigation between the City of Los Angeles, Sacramento Metro Cable Television Commercial, and the City of El Segundo versus Pacific Bell Telephone Company, doing business as AT&T California, LA Superior Court, Central District, case number BC 414272.
Okay, thank you, and we don't expect this to take terribly long, and with that, we will...
Mr. Chairman, I just
yes.
have to announce that I have to recuse myself because of a financial interest with the defendant.
Very good. Duly noted, and with that, we will adjourn to closed session. The Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission meeting. Any final action to report out of closed session?
No.
No final action. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 2.
Agenda item number 2 are 2 resolutions to adopt the fiscal year 2012-13 proposed general fund budget and our PEG fee fund budget.
Okay. Aaron, Bob, take it away.
Thank you. And I will do my best to, there's a lot of information, but I'll try to make my comments brief and get through the staff report as quickly as I can, understanding that there may be questions. So with that, I'm pleased to present the budget. I tried to continue the strategy to be frugal as possible and allow the member agency distributions to be as much as possible. That being said, the revenue distributions this year are going down, and I'll be explaining that later. It's really indicative of the fact that we had so many moves in the last several years that have utilized the PEG fund to enhance the past distributions, and we're kind of out of those moves in a way. So this is getting us back to a more normal budget where the PEG fee fund is funding PEG, public education, government-related facilities and equipment, and the general fund is funding general fund needs. I'll be talking a little bit more about that, but I certainly wanted to point that out from the beginning. With that, I'll just quickly go through the components that were described in the staff report, and then certainly answer any questions. So component 1 in staff report is administration and regulation. Mostly this is status quo with the exception of a few items that have added some cost, and then I will point those out. First, we are recommending that we actually need a full-time administrative support person for the Cable Commission. As you know, the current staff is 2. It's Katie and Karen, who are both sitting here. The commission staff actually has been 2 for a long time, and the budget certainly has gone up from probably $6 million several years ago to $12 million now, plus the addition of the PEG fund. We know it's added a lot of technical requirements that we've talked about in past meetings, but administratively, there's a lot of extra work in regards to tracking the PEG projects, doing the RFQs for the PEG projects, working with the member agencies on the request. And In the past, we've actually said that we needed at least a half-time person here, but we've held off because of the economy and the budget. But now I think it's time to do that, and this position will be important. We'll also provide some backup to the functions that are currently performed by our existing administrative staff. So that's included in the budget, which is why salaries has increased from last year. Also want to point out that we're proposing to move the commission offices. There's a board item later on today that I'll talk about that a little bit more, but there's a couple of cost items. I think the move will only cost a couple $1,000s. We're actually moving to a county facility. We're getting a pretty good rate, which is equal to the rate we're paying right now for probably a better facility, and a 5-year term for that rate. So that rate will not go up for the next 5 years. But with that move, we do want to do a scanning project. The commission offices have a lot of boxes. Some of those are full of just cable complaints and things from 20 years ago. There's some items, certainly Harriet will counsel on us, that we need to keep. We're not going to throw away the JPA formation documents, but we would like to go through and scan a lot of the commission documents and destroy any of the files that we don't need to keep. And so with that, there's under $50,000 in the budget to help us do that project, and that will actually help us make the move easier. So that's related to the moving of the offices. Do want to point out, no salary increases are likely. Staff salaries are tied to county salaries, and I know of no approval of COLAs to any of the positions that are tied. 2 years ago, your commission did approve a one-time pay for performance for the 4 position, and then all the temporary positions that didn't get a COLA that other staff got, and to give one, basically to put everybody on the same foot, your board implemented the 2% pay for performance. So you've done that the last 2 years, and I'm recommending that again this year. With that recommendation, basically, unless something changes with the county salaries, and I do not know that will happen, and I don't think it will happen, commission employees will make the same thing they made last year with no salary increase. Also, due to active litigation, the general counsel item is higher in this year's budget than last year. And I know we talked a little bit about reserves last year. The Cable Commission doesn't have large reserves. It has a $150,000 reserve that has been there for a while, and I am recommending that be increased by $50,000. With that, that's component 1. Now we'll move along to component 2, which is closed captioning. Basically, I'm recommending $160,000, which is a little less than last year. In the staff report, I've provided the past hours and number of meetings that are captioned. There's quite a lot of captioning that's going on, and it's amazing to see. But with that, we need to have a budget sufficient for the unpredictability in meeting hours, and so I think $160,000 is the right number for that. Along with that, staff is also recommending the renewal of the closed caption agreement with Caption Colorado for a 1-year extension to June of 2013. Moving along to the next component, Metro Cable. Just want to point out that Metro Cable covered 329 meetings over 982 hours for over 22 entities at 12 different locations. On top of that, with the implementation of the PEG fee, Metro Cable is involved in control room upgrades and other equipment issues at virtually every member agency. They're doing a great job, so I just want to recognize them for that. We will talk about the PEG projects a little bit when I get to the PEG fund discussion. With that, that brings me to component 4, which is community programming. As you know, your commission typically makes general fund allocations to 5 organizations that are known as channel licensees. This budget is basically recommending the same thing as the past few years. The base for these entities is recommended at $804,751, and then that's the same rate as last year without a COLA. In the past, the commission gave direction to approve these with a COLA, and for the past 3 years, basically, we've kept the base the same, without any COLA increase, and that's what I'm recommending this year. Component 5 is the franchise fee revenue distribution. So basically, the revenue distribution proposed for next year, 12-13, is about $10 million, just under $10 million. Now, this amount is less than previously budgeted, but like I said before, we had some enhancements in past year's budgets, which did a good job of providing extra money to the member agencies. For example, last year's budget had $257,000 reimbursed to the general fund from the PEG fund for past BestNet expenses. Also, the remaining $98,000 from the BestNet Phase 2 project was moved from the general fund to the PEG fund. In addition, BestNet Phase 2 did come in at a lot less than expected, so ultimately there's another at least $200,000 that was basically in the fund balance that didn't need to be reallocated that ultimately found its way to the member agency distribution. So those are enhancements that happened last year that aren't happening this year, but that's why some of the change in the revenue distribution. But, and also just want to point out that over the past couple of years, the general fund was reimbursed $2.3 million for past BestNet expenses. Also, $330,000 of channel licensing base has been moved from the general fund to the PEG fund, and that's an annual item that's also in this year's budget. And also, there were significant savings in BestNets, including what happened last year, but there were some savings from previous years that also enhanced the revenue distributions over the last couple of years. On top of that, over the past several years, cable company revenues, gross revenues have increased, and the franchise fees and PEG fees are based upon the gross revenues. So that also had created more money. Basically, those revenues didn't go down, but they haven't gone up as much as they had in previous years. I believe the revenue distribution that is going to be paid this June is $98,000 higher than budgeted. So that's great that it's more than was budgeted. But it's actually a lot closer to the budgeted amount than maybe we had seen in the past, whereas sometimes several $100,000 extra would be added at this time. So it's important to point that out as well. So that covers the revenue distribution in the general fund. And I will go into 94B fund, which is the PEG fee fund. Basically, the proposed PEG fee fund budget is based on $2.35 million of new PEG fee revenue that's expected, plus carryover funds from last year and a little bit of interest. So the total revenue is about $4.6 million. There's a big carryover because there was a county project of close to $1 million that is still being requested this year, but that was approved last year, so that's rolling over in the fund balance, as well as your board approved BestNet at $600,000 a year for 5 years. And there's a $600,000 in this year's budget, plus last year's is rolling over into this year's budget. That's pretty much the same way the BestNet Phase 2 worked. We're continuing to basically allocate the money as your board's previous direction is there. So with that, I want to point out, first of all, significant projects have been delivered. On your dais is an explanation of some of the Metro Cable projects that have been delivered this year. In addition to the Metro Cable projects, Elk Grove, Rancho Cordova, and the City of Sacramento all utilize PEG fee funds, either with their own request or with Metro Cable's identification of facilities to implement projects related to those control rooms. Also, the channel licensees have funded many projects as well. They may be describing some of those for you today, and it's certainly in the budget, and so I won't go through them individually. I do want to point out that on the dais is an update to Exhibit 3 that is in the staff report. This exhibit basically describes how the almost $4.6 million in PEG revenue is going to be proposed to be spent this year. I'm just going to talk about the highlights, and certainly I can answer any questions. There continues to be money in the budget for control room improvements to all the member agencies. So we have money for Citrus Heights, Elk Grove, Folsom, and Galt recommended, and those are both based on member agency request and Metro Cable items, and those are shown separately in the exhibit. The City of Rancho Cordova submitted a request of $120,000 for various equipment that they need to enhance their control room and their presentations and their council chambers, I mean. The City of Sacramento completed many improvements to their control room last year. This year's budget has some new requests for that, as well as a Metro Cable identified need for a switcher. And in addition, the City of Sacramento has requested $152,000, a little bit more than that, for basically being able to use a historic city, the historic city council chambers in the old city hall as a annex to their newer chambers. This would allow people to provide testimony and certainly watch the meetings from this secondary location. On top of that, I mentioned earlier that the County of Sacramento did submit the request last year for basically upgrading these chambers. That request is being resubmitted this year. I think the request is pretty close to last year's. I think they've looked harder at the equipment needs and the facilities and such. So I would like to believe that the numbers represent maybe more closely what will ultimately be constructed. I do know that county staff is here today, so if your board has any questions on the county request, county architectural staff is here today that can answer your questions. With that, Metro Cable projects of improvements to the control room, a second phase of improvements to the van, and some needed equipment on the Synergy server, which had a major overhaul last year, is included in the budget. In addition to that, there were requests from Access Sacramento. They have a PEG fee request that's similar to the amount that they asked for last year, basically, to pay for their lease, some new equipment, some office equipment and software, and then new capital facilities. KVIE has a request, and recall that they put all of their base into the PEG fee fund, so none of their base is actually in the general fund anymore. They're asking for video monitor replacements, master control, and production editing equipment and field production equipment. And SEC, the Sacramento Education Cable Consortium, in addition to their BestNet, is asking for some funding for cameras, video switchers, and some editing software. With that in general describes most of the requests that we've received for the PEG fund, and how I'm recommending that that your board allocate those requests for this year. We did get a lot of requests this year. It was tight, but basically we're able to manage it. I believe that, since one other thing, because I did mention the revenue distribution is going down, what also is happening is that lots of money is going to member agencies and other organizations for needed equipment that either would have been funded in other budgets or may not have been funded without these PEG funds. And as your board knows, these PEG funds can only be used for equipment and facilities related to public education and government channel facilities. And we feel that the budget presented today certainly makes a good allocation for those projects in the spirit for what those funds should be collected for. So with that, I want to thank both Metro Cable staff and Commission staff working so hard to get this budget to you. I could probably tell you a couple hours of stories related to that which you don't want to hear, but it's always an interesting process. Metro Cable staff continues to work with the member agencies, looking at the PEG projects and helping member agencies out with those PEG projects. So I do want to thank staff and also thank your commission for consideration for today's budget. So with that, I'm recommending that you adopt the resolutions approving the general fund and the PEG fee fund budgets for this year. And I will certainly attempt to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. I do have a number of requests to speak on this item, but any questions for Bob before I call folks up? Phil?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Bob, you and I discussed this when we had our briefing yesterday, and I'm glad to see that there's some county staff here to presumably answer questions relative to improvements for this chamber. I just want to ask the question publicly and have it answered publicly about the constraints on what we can use the funds for chamber improvements. What are those constraints, first of all? What can the funds be used for? When it comes to enhancing our ability to broadcast, does that include things like illuminated emblems for the county seal? Does it include things like bulletproofing the dais? So if there's someone here that can kind of ask or answer those questions, or maybe elaborate a little bit, and maybe those inquiries have already been issued to county counsel's office and answered already, but I think for the benefit of the public, they deserve to hear what the answer is.
Well, perhaps I can address that. Under federal law, PEG fees can be used for capital, facilities, and equipment that are related to the PEG channel cable casting process. That's about how much guidance we get from the federal law. And so we have been working for the last several years to come up with guidelines that help us implement that in a way that we believe fits within the law and fits within the spirit of the law. If cable PEG fees are not used appropriately and the cable company audits us and there's a determination that the cable fees have not been used appropriately, they have the ability, again under federal law, to deduct the amount of the PEG fee that was inappropriate from the franchise fee. Because the 5% franchise fee that we get is the maximum allowable franchise fee under federal law. So in looking at what constitutes capital, facilities, and equipment, we've had a series of meetings, both with the entities that are eligible for PEG funding, along with talking to the county accountants, auditors, and other folks like that. Plus, of course, we have looked into this just from a straight-on legal point of view across the country to see how people use their PEG fees. There's no particular absolute bright line in how they're used. And so the policies that have been adopted by this board and used by the staff generally look to whether or not they enhance the ability for to actually provide for PEG cable casting. And so in this particular case for the chambers, one of the requests, for example, was to to redo the dais. And it seemed to us at the time, as we were going through this, that basically doing a new dais would enhance the ability to provide cable casting in this chamber. Virtually all daises in this day and age are built in a way that's similar to the way that the county is anticipating building it. And so we felt that that was appropriate. So that's sort of the way in which we've gone forward to look at these issues, because it's up to this board in the final analysis to decide whether or not the funding request is appropriate. But we've generally looked at it that if one of our member agencies is redoing their chambers, and if PEG funding is going to be used for that, that it could be used for the facilities that enhance cable casting. So podiums, daises, microphones, cameras, et cetera. And potentially that would include, some amount of, logos and other things, because that's how the viewing public knows what they're watching.
What about that part of the chambers? What about where those folks sit versus these folks in terms of ADA compliance, accessibility? Is that also kind of in the eye of the beholder here? Because I'm hearing you say that under federal law, it's vague, or it's left very broad for local government to interpret how to use those funds for improvement of the mission of this commission to enhance broadcasting. So does that also include when you move a podium, when you presumably if you're changing seating to accommodate improvements to the dais, could that include, for instance, the ramp to the left here, or the door in the back of chambers to make it more accessible to people?
It could potentially include that. As I said, we do not get specific direction from the federal law. There are not implementing regulations, and as I've learned in going through this, that what one accountant thinks is a capital expenditure, another accountant may not believe that to be a capital expenditure, or a layperson may not consider that to be a capital expenditure. So what we've tried to do is do things that enhance the ability to use the chambers for the purposes that we broadcast, which is the ability to provide access and video production, so that the watchers on the system can better see it, and people who want to address the dais would be able to actually access.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Very good. Board Member Natoli?
Yeah, I just want to follow on, and I certainly agree with the approach that I think as you've outlined, Harriet, and again, this has been something that we've kicked around, and again, we have requests from a number of the member bodies, and I think having both the audio-visual, but certainly the accommodation as it relates to lighting those things. After all, those are public, as this is public chambers, and it's a public broadcast, and the intention is obviously to have folks be able to, if they're unable to be here in person, certainly to be able to see the proceedings, and when they're archived, to revisit that, to see the actions that are and deliberations that go on in the public chambers. I guess, and maybe this is not so much for Bob, because I know others are working on this, but a couple of things do strike me, and again, you know, whether they're fundable and appropriately so, but I think in the times that we're in particular, but at any time, I think it's appropriate to maybe put a question mark around them. And I know that I have raised in other venues some of the measures. Again, I certainly want folks to be secure, both on this side of the dais, but also within these chambers. And again, I don't know from a cost breakdown standpoint a couple of these things, but I think that again, with some good reason, but more and more we're seeing facilities that are hardened, and yet they're public facilities, and you need to measure the risk involved versus making it more difficult for public access, or having an expenditure of funds that looks to be something that's beyond what folks who are actually paying the cost, and whether subscribers through fees that come to us from the cable system or any other source of public funding. And so I guess I do raise the issue, not unlike my colleague, but on the backlit county emblem. I didn't know that was part of the, that county emblem is behind the screen right now. I think it's pretty readable, but and a couple of the other things, and I guess I'll need to avail myself. People have certainly talked with me about this, and I supported this expenditure last year because I think that the upgrades that provide for the conduct of business, both for this body as well as all the bodies that meet here, that's important. But I think accessibility for chambers in whole, but also some of the things here that, again, maybe I don't need to take it up with you folks because we're the funding source here, but I have a couple question marks here, and again, I'm not the one that's making the judgments about, security measures and so forth, but in my view, as a member of this body and certainly the Board of Supervisors, there's a balance there between providing for certain security for all that are in a hearing chambers and minimizing risk as much as possible, and also then having either expenditure that seems to be a bit extravagant and or unnecessary, particularly even if the funds are dedicated to this source. And so I want to put that out there, but I'm not so sure about the backlit county emblem. I don't know what the cost of that is. It doesn't look like, well, that whole column item is $80,000, so I don't know what that is. That's AV backlit, AV lighting for the whole room, I guess. So
yeah, this is the best breakdown I have. It's actually more detailed than last year. We do have county staff here that if your board would like to see if they have the information on how those are broken out, I would suggest that they come up to the podium. And
so I don't know, is Janet here or something? Is that? Oh, there should be right there. Okay.
Supervisor Natoli, you always impress me remembering people's names. Janet Cornelius,
You do a good job, Janet.
Chief of Facility Planning and Management. And I have Joyce Johnson with me, who's the project manager, so if I get a little lost in the details, she'll bail me out. First of all, I want to address your concern about the bullet-resistant assembly. That's going to add approximately $15,000 to the total cost of the project. And what we're going to do is come in with fiberglass on the inside face of the dais, and it basically gives you a duck and cover space. We've done that in Jan Scully's office. We've done that in several places throughout the county. So it is not something that provides a barrier between you and the public. And the time to do it is when we're redoing the electronic systems within the dais, because it'll be the most cost-effective time to put it in. Okay. Secondly, on the emblem, this is not, our design is not finalized at this point, and we've kicked around a number of different ideas of what we want to do behind the dais itself. And the latest one we've discussed is having some type of screen in the back that each individual board could project their own personal emblem on that, and I think that would work more well with all of the boards.
I would concur with you. So if you got
Okay.
a lab, I mean, there's still county board of supervisors chambers, but I mean, they're
Yes.
whether it's LAFCO or it's the sanitation district, I think that, or city council
So-
sitting
That
here.
makes sense.
Yeah.
We want to redo those sliding boards behind you and get something that's more projected as opposed to somebody coming in and pinning up.
Can we raise that screen just so you see what's there now? I'm not Janet, because somebody
Oh.
just pull this. Push
I
this.
think it's controlled
Yeah,
down.
you know how you Janet. Some cable commission can take that screen out. It's just
Okay.
no?
Cindy has a control. Cindy has a control there for it.
Over there.
Maybe this is exactly the example.
I apologize.
We can ask if Donna and her staff can come out if they.
Well, they can raise it from. I think they can.
There we go.
I know there's magic in this room. So.
You can always count on Metro Cable staff.
And they hear you.
Well, they haven't got the panel with the emblem. Then there's a panel that has the emblem, I think.
And I think that panel moves manually.
Yeah, it does. Okay, all right. So.
And it's the county seal
Yeah,
as
it's just
opposed
the county
to
seal,
the emblem.
yeah, yeah.
But like I said, this is a budget, and it's our aim always to bring projects in under budget. And so we've got numbers in here now trying to forecast what the different board members are going to want to see in the final product. And so any expenditures that aren't, any funds that aren't expended certainly would be returned back to the PEG board.
Janet,
but-
well, go ahead.
Go ahead. But that is our intent right now. The latest discussion is that we have something that's projected as opposed it's permanently there. And then you can even change from the more informal county logo, I'll refer to it as, to the official seal.
Okay, if I could just, so what about, where's the security gate supposedly going to be?
It would be at the end of the dais.
Is there the ability to, you're basically, because I like the way you've captured this as far as, nothing's been finalized, is to maybe budget this amount and then defer to maybe a county board discussion on exactly, what elements are supported and not, and then that comes back for final. And if there's, as you just mentioned, if there's additional funding, that way you can answer to.
I think it's a great suggestion, Mr. Chair, not only for the purpose of vetting, at least at the board level, what we think might be extravagant or necessary, but I think it also gives us the ability to make clear for the public the difference between this fund allocation and the general fund in the county of Sacramento, because I think there might be some misinterpretation that this body is talking about a different fund, which funds a number of different positions and a whole gamut of service delivery separate from what the charges of cable commission. And I think that would be very helpful, at least speaking as one of 5 members of the County Board of Supervisors, to make that clear to the public that they're 2 separate funds and it's 2 separate governing bodies, and to put a little more finer point on it.
Yeah. And if I just could, I certainly concur with, again, I think that the board members, each of us can avail ourselves, and I think there has been conversation certainly by the 2 of us speaking, but I think with other offices as well regarding not only the expenditure on the county side of it, but what goes into that, and there's been a lot of folks working on that. I just want to reemphasize, I do believe that having good audiovisual application in these chambers or anybody else's chambers that has broadcast is important, because it's, again, in some cases it's the permanent record, other cases it may not be, but it's the avenue for many, many folks not to have to travel to see, again, the conduct of public business in a public setting, and to be able to hear that, to see that, to see exhibits that are being shown to the body that's given the decision-making role and in whatever context. And so I support those things, and I think obviously if we need to, in these chambers, to accommodate for now and in the future larger assemblies of bodies that are going to be seated here, I support that too. It's just I want to be sure from, again, it has nothing to do with architectural design so much as it does, I think, just from a standpoint of, as we look at those things, certainly to be able to reflect whoever's meeting here. And I like the idea of maybe projecting the logo of the body that's in session. That will give the audience a better understanding. It's, the county still maybe county board chambers, but On the other hand, if it's LAFCO or the Cable Commission, or whoever it might be that's in session, then they'll get that from the visual. And so I think those things are important. Again, I think, as Mr. Cerna said, my last comment here, though, is that, I think as we distinguish that, and it was this discussion, we had this a year ago this time in the budget, that as we continue to go through some budget challenges, that people have an understanding that the money is dedicated for a particular purpose as it relates to PEG fees, and there are some limitations. It doesn't have to be used in these chambers or anybody else's chambers, but the idea is to help, again, subscribers and those that tune in Channel 14 have a better view and understanding via the transmission anyway of what's going on in those particular settings. So.
And I had a similar thought, Andy, to what you were thinking. Is that, I mean, my concern reading this was that for this board to approve funding prior to the Board of Supervisors even discussing the project at their board level might be premature and presuppose the board's decision making on what kind of upgrades, if any, might be appropriate for these chambers. And so I think, while we're in the staff design phase at the moment, I think the board members, as a separate body, I mean, I know the board members, all 5 or their alternates sit here, but I think it's probably appropriate at some point for the county executive to bring a discussion about that to the board, and have the Board of Supervisors discuss what are the needs, what are the nice to haves, and what's maybe even the appropriate timing. There's a lot of in the 4th district, I know there have been a lot of questions asked about the appropriateness of the board upgrading their chambers just in principle at the same time that services are being cut by the county. And so that's one of the concerns and comments that we hear out in the community. It's not that there isn't, the potential for the community to understand, some of the security and space needs that exist here, but when the funding's authorized but a project hasn't been approved, then there's a supposition by the public then that the project's already moving forward, and I think a misunderstanding too that that's money that could otherwise be going to clinic care or sheriff's deputies or anything like that. So it's not, and that's not meant to be a slight to the staff that's working on this project. It's just a concern about what's the proper ordering of which bodies act in what order and for what reasons.
So can we just proceed then with this understanding, or do we need some clearer language as far as that this budgetary amount for the county will be vetted at the county board level,
Well, this would be, I mean, if the commission board went forward, you could approve an amount as, that would stay there, and it would never, well, it wouldn't be released anyway until the county signed the funding agreement. So that would require the Board of Supervisors to act. But I guess the question that Bob and I had in listening to the discussion was whether you would then want the actual agreement between the county and the commission to come back to this body before they could expend any funds, or whether you would whether you're okay with the amount of money as long as and then the county would draw that money down but couldn't exceed the amount that you
I'm comfortable with that, but I'll defer to the.
I would just weigh in on that. I think that if the commission is comfortable, I mean, this is like a similar amount that what was set aside last year that wasn't, here we are a year later and still having conversations about the specifics of the project and the remodel and the additions that we're talking about here today in some detail. And so I think that, again, going through, this, I guess, a not to exceed amount, at least as it would be fixed in this year's budget. So, again, if it came in something less than that or at budget, whatever the components are, I think that, I, as a commissioner, even if this was some other body, I wouldn't see necessarily to have to bring the agreement back to the commission, but that it needs to go through the channels, I think in this case, the county level, as I assume it will in all the other respective jurisdictions for, the expenditure of funds that then draw on the amount that's set aside. So.
Right, because for each one of the PEG fund projects, for all of the member agencies, last year your board approved a pro forma agreement, and that agreement provides the obligation to spend the funds in the appropriate manner, to give us back funds that are in excess, and to take the right obligations, since they would be the contracting agencies. So each one of the member agencies signs and executes an agreement with the commission as to the use of the funds, and and that has a budget attached to it. And so so it would be anticipated that would also happen with this project.
Very good. Okay. Any other?
Well, do we need to make a motion on that to hold these funds?
You may
that,
want to
you know-
take public comment first.
Okay.
So,
I have a question, Mr. Chair. On the position, the increase of the full-time position, Bob, I think in your remarks you said that there was some consideration of doing a part-time position.
In the past, we have a authorized part-time position, but we haven't funded that position, and we've held back given the budget. And at this point, I would recommend the deletion of the part-time position and the basically funding the full-time position.
I mean, would it make sense to maybe start off as a part-time position and then maybe mid-year review, see if workload necessitates making that full-time as opposed to?
Yeah, and that's a possible implementation strategy. And we even have hired temporary help before and have started them off. I really see the need for the full-time, so I would rather get the budgetary authorization. We do propose coming back in October for a final budget, and I could actually, I can certainly report on the exact position in some of those specifics, but I would certainly recommend that we fully fund the position.
Mr. Chair, I also had another question. On the staff report of the different components you identified, one was component number 3, the Metro Cable, the 5 points, and one was assisting the election forms.
Correct.
I just want to share that in the most recent election form held by Metro Cable, there was some misunderstanding in the sense that written instructions were given to the participants in terms of the format and the time frames, in terms of opening and closing statements. And then at the actual taping, those written instructions were disregarded and new ones were made verbally, which I think added confusion to the participants. And I think it would be good in any future election forms that the written rules be adhered to once they're given to the participants, because people prepare for those. That's in their mindset, and calling audibles at the time when the taping begins does cause confusion.
I'll certainly take that feedback back. I know that the forum is put on by the League of Women Voters, and the Metro Cable staff certainly helps in that regard. I don't have the specifics on this exact incident, but your comments are well taken, and I'll make sure that they get conveyed back to the proper parties.
Thank you.
I agree with Howard that I think if public money is being spent to help provide a forum for those candidate forums, that it's important that everyone be on the same playing field, and that the public also be on the same playing field with advance notice of what the rules are and what to expect coming in. I think that's a reasonable public interest.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions for Bob before I call request to speak to the mic? Okay, very good. So I do have about 6 requests to speak, so I'd ask everybody to be as succinct as possible. And we'll start off with Gary Martin. And after Gary is Joanne Fuller, and after Joanne is Lori Easterwood. Good afternoon, Gary.
Good afternoon. And thank you to the members of the Cable Commission. I'm the Access Sacramento Vice Chairman. And in a moment, you'll meet Joanne, our chair. Carl Burton was termed out. He's been coming to these meetings for years. And so we still have his advice. But much has been accomplished in the past year, thanks to the Cable Commission's financial support and careful planning by the Access Sacramento Board and the staff. With your financial help, combined with grant funds that we match with the money that you provide, the California Endowment, Access Sacramento has accomplished much. Here's a short list. We have replaced well-worn equipment, moving to high definition away from standard definition when we can, conducting ongoing equipment training for staff and volunteers on the new equipment, so all of that with no significant downtime or closure of facilities. We've updated our multi-camera production equipment on the Hometown TV and Game of the Week projects, while continuing to produce more than 65 annual programs throughout the county. Last March, we, using your funds, launched the successful Access Local TV website involving multiple partner organizations in the South Sacramento area. They have in turn created more than 600 new blogs, videos, press releases, and that site is now averaging about 500 hits a day. All of this new digital content is shared with the major media outlets, including the Sacramento Bee, KXTV News 10 from ABC in their My Neighborhood area, and sacpress.com. So the outreach of the community through our site is getting picked up by the major media as well, and that's very good news. Most of those messages are coming from unserved communities in South Sacramento. We received grant funding of $100,000 for 2 years from the California Endowment to help youth and families improve their health and well-being in South Sacramento. With help of the UC Davis School of Education, we have now organized 3 annual and highly successful youth media forums for social change. The third event was most recently held at the Sacramento Press, sacpress.com, just this May 11th. And in partnership with the Sacramento City Unified Schools and UC Davis, 100 teens and adults attended that event. It was streamed live from that site on the internet and is now archived with Comcast Xfinity On Demand. And this past weekend, our Coloma Center was also the home for 250 artists and entertainers for the Express Yourself Festival. That featured local bands, dancers, nonprofit organizations, and media partners, and offered tours of our facilities. We also kicked off, of course, the 13th annual Place Called Sacramento Cast and Crew Call, the annual festival which has created in the last 12 years 119 short films all about the city and community of Sacramento. All of that ending up, of course, on the Crest Theater's big screen annually in October.
We're at about 3 minutes, so if you could kind of wrap it up, please.
Okay. Thank you for your time. We're pleased with the funding that we've had and encourage you to offer us the status quo funding again as we've requested. And thank you.
Probably. Thank you, Gary. And next, Joanne. Hi, Joanne.
Hi. Really glad to be with you this afternoon. Chair and members of the Cable Commission, I'm Joanne Fuller, and I chair the Access Board. On behalf of the board and staff and our hundreds of volunteers, we very much appreciate the support that you provided to local community media over the past 25 years. And as Vice Chair Martin has explained, we've done a lot with the money, but we have even better ideas, we think, to carry forward our mandate over the next year. And we're budgeting into the future, thinking of the next 3 years. Our request is for status quo funding for both operations and new equipment purchases, but we're going to do a lot with that money. And here's the kind of things we're going to be doing. So you heard about the accesslocal.tv site that we're so proud of, and that really aggregates videos, press releases, blogs, everything that people are creating, all the content that people are creating, putting it onto an aggregated website where mainstream news facilities here in our area can pick up on some of these stories and have a more complete community reporting. Channel 10 My Neighborhood does that, and the SACB Sacramento Connects also does that. Our 5 key initiatives coming up for the next year include the neighborhood news community content partners are going to welcome 3 outstanding new community organizations that are really going to help us put ourselves out into the community. The California Endowment, Building Healthy Communities nonprofits, the Sacramento Public Library, and the Nonprofit Resource Center. Also, the City of Sacramento Neighborhood Services, several local neighborhood associations, and others. So we're going to, in the next 3 years, we think we're going to have a facility within 15 minutes of anybody living in the county where they can go and express themselves. So really exciting. The next exciting thing we're going to do next year is the live event television on Channel 17. You know that we do community events and Game of the Week videos, and we're doing lots of those over the year. Now we're going to be able to stream those live. So really exciting. We've set a goal of at least 20 Hometown TV and Game of the Week productions streamed live. Then over the next year, we're going to, as a board and as an organization, we're going to complete a county-wide communication needs assessment task force, which will implement a Knights Foundation designed community information toolkit. So we're going to be working with groups all over the county to really assess what the needs of our county are and how we can step in line to help meet those needs. And then we're applying for a low-power FM license, radio license. It's been 10 years since the Federal Communications Commission has offered a license here in Sacramento, and we're going to be applying for it.
Okay.
And if we get it, we're going to be broadcasting within a radius or a diameter of 6 miles in Sacramento.
Thank you, Joanne.
And we're
I'll
also
wrap it
going to
up.
have a convention for the Community Media Western States Regional Convention here. So all in all, thank you so much for your support.
All right, thanks for coming out, Joanne. Lori is next, and followed by Lori is Gail Caitlin, and then Liz Rhodes.
Hi, I'm Laura Easterwood. I work for the Sacramento Public Library as the programming supervisor, and I'm here to thank you for your support of this project. We're going to be installing a green studio over at the Central Library, which will be a wonderful resource for our patrons, and for the library itself. We'll be able to record PSAs. People will be able to come in and record their stories for archiving in the Sacramento room. It's going to be fantastic. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Lori. Gail, and then Liz, and lastly, David Lowe.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Thank you for your consideration of this budget and this proposal. I'm Gail Catlin. I'm the Executive Director of the Nonprofit Resource Center, which has been serving the nonprofits in our region for the last 20 years with education, information, and best practices management consulting for nonprofits. We are delighted to be included in this consideration because our board has met over the last 2 years to consider ways to fortify the nonprofit sector in our region going forward, and has created the Vision 2015 plan, which is reliant upon the ability to use technology to reach out to communities and to share information with nonprofits in response to the community support that's given to that sector. And we needed a partner to do that, and Access Sacramento and the Cable Commission's consideration of this plan with the new Nonprofit Resource Center as a news hub, again with a green studio, advances that effort. We're looking forward to installing a green studio at the Nonprofit Innovation Center on Garden Highway. In that center, there are 15 nonprofits already existing, and we serve 5,000 nonprofits in this region. We are hoping that with that and with the community support, the studios will be used to tell the important stories of nonprofits that are critical. First of all, to connect the public with the resources that nonprofits provide. Secondly, to connect volunteers and supporters with the causes that they have passion about. And then, really notably, to show the impact of nonprofit services in the community as an accountability step to the community. In addition to that, the Nonprofit Resource Center will work with Access Sacramento to provide educational programs, information on how to collaborate between nonprofits, keeping nonprofits in the community informed, and create shared learning environments using both the broadcast and the website capabilities. Thank you very much for the consideration and for the continued support of the nonprofit sector and Access Sacramento. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for coming out today, Gail. Next is Liz, and followed by David Lowe.
Good afternoon. I'm Liz Rhodes, Executive Director of the Educational Cable Consortium. Just very briefly, thank you, very much for your support. Your contributions to SECC represent about 60% of our operational budget, the rest being from the basically the school districts. Also wanted to mention that the payback that we're getting on your original investment on BestNet has been significant to all the districts, and it is very much appreciated, saving them lots of money that they've been able to divert into other areas. So just wanted to express our appreciation for that. And finally, unless you had any questions about our budget, I wanted to thank Bob and Karen for the way they work with us in terms of preparing these budgets and the freedom that they give us to express what our needs are and the real support that we feel that we have from them. You have a tremendous staff, and we very much appreciate their working with us. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks for sharing those compliments. And I just realized that David is requesting to speak on item number 9. So,
although you probably had it right and I probably had it wrong.
oh,
This is
then-
probably the most appropriate.
Very good. Then come on up, David.
Actually, I was going to say thank you for correcting what I believe was my error and where I probably should be. I think I have a video teed up.
Yes.
No? Okay, good. David Lowe, KVIE Public Television. Just wanted to say thank you on behalf of our volunteer board of directors and staff for your continued support. And I just wanted to share with you our season wrap-up video for Studio Sacramento. We just finished our first season, and it airs on KVIE 2, and it's just 2 minutes long. So if we could cue that up, I just wanted to say thank you and hope you enjoy the recap.
Okay, very good. Thank you, David. All right, looks like we got to put that screen back down now. And
They are on the ball today.
Welcome to Studio Sacramento. I'm your host, Scott Syfax.
Quality of life is driven by economic vitality. That is the fundamental driver.
I understand those who say that we shouldn't have a lesser housing for certain people, but we have no housing.
I like being part of a community where I know who grew my food and I know where it's coming from.
Well, what we're trying to do is to make the entire energy sector in Sacramento much more efficient.
These young people are raised by their traffickers, often as the adult in their life that is caretaking them.
We have to have security. We have to also respect people's civil liberties too.
Everyone has to support higher ed because that's what's going to make California great again.
I always thought that people who commit the crimes ought to be behind the bars rather than senior citizens afraid to go out the street behind bars in their own homes.
We are losing people that we need in Mexico in order to reform our economy. We are growing, we are running out of Mexicans to export.
Why have we had civil settlements where banks have been allowed to settle for pennies on the dollar with no admission of wrongdoing?
It appears to be progress, but underneath the veneer, just under the surface, we have as much to do now as we did when he was alive.
Why are we not preparing the next generation in the way that we need to have the leadership we need?
It is a false premise to say because certain good things are happening that things don't need to change.
If you can begin to realize you can control your body, then you'll all of a sudden have the epiphany that you can control the world outside your body.
I want to hear local. I want to hear what's happening in my community, because that's still something you can't turn on CNN or Fox News and get.
Great, thanks. Thanks for bringing that in, and for our behind-the-scenes folks for teeing that up so quickly. There certainly wasn't a shortage of juicy topics on that video. So, okay, that's the last request to speak on this. Any other questions for Bob before we kind of work to get a motion we're comfortable with? Okay, so now what do we need to do then to try and get the county funding issue? Do we need a separate motion on that just to make that clear, or?
Can I weigh in? I don't think we. I think it's, we've had a conversation here, and if it, it basically sets the money aside. If there's some clarification, I heard Mr. Walter was going to offer a motion, but I don't think there needs to be anything that separates it out. I mean, unless there's other thoughts on that, I think you just need to recognize that that's going to require full vetting through the, to the Board of Supervisors, and that that's an amount that's been set aside for purposes that have kind of been outlined, but those are not all definitive in the sense that they've not received approval. That was my understanding. So.
But I think as long as this board is comfortable with including the amount in the budget, that our normal process would require that the county sign an agreement before they could draw down the funds. And so then it will be up to the county representatives and the county process to decide exactly what's happening in this chamber. We as staff would then make sure with the county staff that we've been working with and county counsel's office that all the expenditures that we are going to make are appropriate PEG expenditures. Then we would sign then the contract would get signed and the project would go forward. So as long as you don't want to see that back to this commission before that before it goes forward, assuming it's approved by the county, then I think we're good to go as the budget's set up. If you want to see it back before this commission, you would have to make a separate motion.
Okay.
And I certainly can use future meetings in the staff status section to update this commission on what is happening with that project too.
Okay. All right. So.
Well, I'm not comfortable approving that funding right now. It just feels like if we're approving the funding, then we're basically saying that with what's in front of us right now, it feels like we're saying we're okay with the project as currently scoped. And I don't want to presuppose that that the board members in their deliberations are going to approve the project as currently scoped, and I don't want to presuppose that action. So I'd like to somehow find a way that we can hold the money back with an understanding that there is a project in the works. I mean, I don't even know what the timing is right now of when that project might actually go forward. Is that a question?
There was a schedule in your.
There is.
Get up to the mic rather than yelling from my chair. There was a schedule on the second page of the memo. And I would also add that the design process may take us longer or it may be shorter.
Yeah, I meant timing as far as are we talking about January? Are we talking about June? I mean, because I think even the timing of the appropriateness of actually moving forward with the project is something the board should and would want to consider. Given we've got the county budget hearings coming up now and in September. We're not certain yet what the final impacts of any budget reductions will be for the county, and I think that some board members may look at it and say, geez, right now is not the best time to move forward with the project. Maybe it's better to hold off another year or two or something, because I know that this project's been under discussion for a few years now, but nothing's been committed to yet. Is that understanding accurate, or is the plan for the current fiscal year for a project to occur, or what's?
The board would need to approve the agreement prior to us moving forward with it. So the timing of that being an agenda item, I'm sure would be well after at least the proposed budget. If you would like to have that timed after the final budget's approved, that can be arranged. The actual construction, we will end up scheduling around board recesses.
Okay. I'm not comfortable voting to approve the funding right now. Before the board has had a chance to vet consideration of the scope of the project, if any project at all.
My only comment is similar to last year. This was appropriated, I guess, so to speak, or authorized, and the county did say not yet. We still have questions, and that could still, you could repeat that process if you just don't get comfortable. Right. So I don't. I think, Ted, that was proven by the county board last year, is that, until you get comfortable with the project, there's kind of an appropriation there, but it certainly doesn't have to be spent. Steve?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think, one, if we use the premise of the outline that's here, this is going to have to come back through approval in an agreement, the way you explained it.
Normally, once the budget's approved here with the grant in front of you, staff would execute, from the commission's point of view, staff would execute Bob would execute the agreement. You could, if the board is inclined, you could make a motion that says, this amount of money is set aside, subject to approval by the county, and if there are any significant, if there are any significant changes, it needs to come back to this board. It's really up to you what you want to do, whether you want to set it aside and say that you're setting aside this amount of money but not approving the specifics of the grant. You could do that as well, because I think everyone understands that no matter what is this is sort of saying, well, here's what we think, here's the amount of money, and you're saying, okay, well, you can have this amount of money, but you can't exceed it. But the county as an entity is still going to have to decide exactly what they want to do in these premises before we would all sign any agreements. So it's really at your discretion whether you want to just set aside the funds and say, please come back to this board, whether you want to set aside the funds and say, well, they can be released by staff when the county executes a funding agreement consistent with this amount of money. It's really up to what you want to do.
Okay. Well, I'm comfortable with whatever the county representatives on this board are comfortable with, so whatever they want to try and work out.
I think the last option that was just laid out by here, where you can set the money aside and that, based upon a funding agreement that's executed between the county and the commission, that then, which would require authorization by the Board of Supervisors and review. That's, so this is a, up to amount set aside. It could be something far less than this. I mean, there's some basics in here that are going to be with cameras and so forth. You've got, several $100,000 that are not related to anything that has aesthetics and or security involved in them. And again, trying to vet all those in this context becomes very difficult. But again, if it's set aside, I don't know if that addresses the concern here, but basically, I don't know this project from the standpoint of this commission needs to be held any different standard relative to having to approve the agreement on a separate motion. I mean, it's one thing to have the money there and have the understanding that the body that's going to be the authorizing body as it relates to the improvements in these public chambers, they have to be comfortable with that, whatever those are, and timing and anything else that goes into that. It seems to me that that's what we've done with all the cities and other jurisdictions and libraries and everybody else. And so, I think that's an appropriate process, but one that has not been complete. I certainly concur with Ted that hasn't been done yet, and we've had conversation over the better part of a year, and there's been back and forth, and certainly Janet's been part of those discussions, but the clerk's office, certainly Metro Cable 14 and others regarding, and the sheriff's department's been involved in the security aspects, and so I just think that all that needs to be vetted, and we have not had a conversation before the Board of Supervisors on this, and a presentation by the county executive. So
I would add to that, Don, that I think the county representative commissioners up here, it's incumbent upon us to take back to the board, and I think it's our memories are good on the subject, and we're going to be able to express the spirit of this discussion at the Board of Supervisors. But I suspect that the crescendo is starting to amplify a bit about the concern has been stated by both Ted and Supervisor Natoli, just about the perception or misunderstanding that might be out there in terms of appropriating funds for the improvements for this chamber set against the backdrop of generally of fiscal distress, not just at the county but in the region. So I'm certainly willing to remember the spirit of this discussion and raise that with at the appropriate time at the Board of Supervisors. And we have the chair of the Board of Supervisors obviously sitting here today, and I suspect that if we have an opportunity to do that sometime in the near future, that it's probably reaching a point, Don, where we have to have that discussion.
I do want to make one suggestion, and I don't want to complicate this, but there is approximately $200,000 of this amount that's allocated for cameras that Metro Cable staff is going to purchase. And if your board is willing, I would appreciate if that money could be separated out and authorized to go forward, and the remainder of the project be subject to what you're talking about. If you wanted to wait for the cameras, I mean, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But I feel that Metro Cable staff can go forward with the cameras if your board is okay.
And the potential redesign of the chambers doesn't affect the cameras?
It won't affect the cameras.
Okay. All right. So everybody comfortable with that as far as just getting that?
Okay, so yeah, because those are Metro Cable assets, not county assets?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Yeah. Well, just as my colleagues, I mean, obviously, Ted and Howard and Aaron, represent they're supervisors here, they certainly have some latitude, but is that comfortable to have this set aside and then recognizing that it's going to require board approval, bless you, whatever timing, comes forward to the board before any authorization is given for expenditure beyond the cameras, the $200,000 that would go to
I think set aside makes sense.
Okay, all right.
Actually, 199,500 is very close to.
Okay, well, any other questions before I ask somebody to try and capture a motion on this? Or does really anything?
So there's a series of staff recommendations, subject to the discussion we just had, if you could move them individually or you could move them all as a package.
And where are those, Harriet?
They're on the first page of the staff report on the budget.
Oh, recommendations.
And I believe if you adopt the two resolutions, all these items are adopted as part of that action.
Okay.
So if there's a withhold from that list, then that could be noted.
So how do we get the clarification to encompass the discussion, I think through the chair, but the encompass the discussion we took place, I think discussion, I'm
okay, so I think our understanding would be that the million, the county request would be determined as a set-aside. Expenditure of those funds would be subject to approval by the Board of Supervisors, with the exception of the cameras, which are just under $200,000, which could go forward.
Okay.
I would move that in two resolutions, and unless there's any offered amendments. So.
Second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Guess we'll go ahead and call a roll on this.
Okay. Moran?
Yes.
And so noted that Turner, Supervisor Turner left at 3:26. Detrick?
Yes.
Walter for McClashen?
Yes.
Natoli?
Aye.
Schmidt for Peters?
Yes.
Cerna?
Aye.
Chong for Yi?
Yes.
And I believe that motion passes.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Karen. And Mel did leave me a note. He is supportive of the budget, so I know that was a counted vote, but he wanted me to express his support. So, okay, with that, thank you, everyone. And we will move to item number 3.
Item number 3 is approval of a resolution to adopt the GASB Statement 54 standards and applications for the Commission.
Okay, I will try to make my presentations from here on brief. GASB 54 was implemented to address issues related to how fund balance was being reported in governmental financial statements. This policy will basically authorize me to in preparing the financial statements, to identify which category the fund balance would be apportioned to. This is a detail that's in financial statements that your board is likely not to see, so I'm recommending that you adopt this policy that authorizes me to make those determinations.
Very good. Any questions for Bob on this item? I have no request to speak on this item. And let's see, action. I'll go ahead and move to approve resolution number 2012-009. Okay, seconded by Steve. A voice vote. All supportive, say aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Abstentions? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 4.
Item number 4 is approval of a resolution to delegate authority to our Executive Director to execute an office lease with the County of Sacramento.
Okay, thank you. I addressed this in the budget item already, so I'll just give a few more specifics. We are at the end of a 5-year lease at our current location, the Commission office at the Court Plaza building at 901 H Street. And staff has contacted the county about the availability of space and has come up with the opportunity to possibly move the commission to 799 G Street, the Department of Technology building, which I think many of you are familiar with, at 799 G Street. We could basically move there for the same rent we're paying right now. The county has talked about a 5-year lease where the terms of the rent would not change. And so we think this is a good opportunity to move into better facilities that certainly it's helping at least one of the member agencies that does have some vacancies and will help fill some of those vacancies. So with that, this item is basically asking you to delegate the authority for me to execute a lease agreement subject to a term of not more than 5 years and a rate that's not more than we're currently paying for the commission offices currently, which is $2,340 per month.
Okay, any questions for Bob on this? Does seem like a great opportunity. Okay, no questions, no requests to speak. I'll go ahead and move approval of resolution number 2012-010.
Second.
Okay, moved, seconded by Steve. All those in support?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Item number 5.
Item number 5 is the approval of a resolution for the Commission to terminate participation in CSAC EIA's insurance programs and enter into a membership with GSRMA and participate in their insurance programs.
Okay, thank you. As you know, the Commission has participated in the CSAC Excess Insurance Authority, or EIA, as it's known, for workers' compensation. In addition, Alliant Insurance Services basically brokers the property and liability insurance for us. County Risk Management really does this for us. They provide risk management services for the Commission. So they've been involved in what we have done in the past, and now they're recommending that we make this change. The Golden State Risk Management Authority is a joint powers authority that was founded in 1979, and it's one that a lot of small organizations like this commission use, and it has more preferential rates for small type organizations. They actually are also a member of the CSAC EIA, so in a sense we'd be leaving the CSAC EIA for workers' comp. We would be joining the GSRMA, which is another joint powers authority, but they also have a relationship with the CSAC EIA. Paul Height, who is the county's risk management staff that has helped us with this, thinks this would be a good move for the Commission. If we make this change, we'd be saving approximately $25,000 a year. So with that, I'm certainly recommending that you adopt today's actions that would basically terminate participation with the CSAC EIA and authorize insurance with the GSRMA.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Any questions for Bob on this item? Okay, none. I have no requests to speak on this item.
You got it.
Second.
Okay, item moved by Director Natoli and seconded by Board Member Dietrich. All those approving?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstentions? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Item number 6.
Item number 6 is selection of a chair and vice chair for fiscal year 2012-13.
Okay, thank you, Karen. And since our vice chair left, this will make it really easy to find a chair. So I'll, in speaking with Mel, he is supportive of taking on the role of chair. So I'll go ahead and move Mel as our chair for our next fiscal year.
Second.
Seconded. All those approving of Mel for chair for next fiscal year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we got a chair. Is there anybody, any volunteers, nominations for vice chair?
Not here.
That are not here.
Right.
I nominate someone from the city of Sacramento.
Yeah, we could certainly do that, couldn't we? So is there anybody present here that has an interest in taking on the vice chair role, with the assumption that they'd probably just roll into the chair role at some point? If not, we could certainly nominate and approve somebody from the city of Sacramento, and then they could tell us no thanks and redo it again.
If nobody wants to step forward, I'll do it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
I move Commissioner Dietrich for vice chair.
Second.
Very good. Well, thank you, Steve. Motion and a second for Steve Dietrich as our vice chair for the next fiscal year. All supportive signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair, if I just get, it was certainly notable to me as I looked at the list, going back now 30 years into the 31st year. So the commission has certainly had a long progression, certainly of leadership in the chair and vice chair. But it was notable to me that looking at a list, you've got 30 years reflected there. Not only your, as I said, the board leadership, but certainly just all that's gone on. It's been passed pretty quickly when you look at the list of names there. So anyway, 31st year and still rolling along.
Yeah. And without Without Robbie Waters here, this
that was a stretch.
It's a little more difficult of an item, but
he gets the prize for most terms. So.
Very good. And with the concurrence of our new chair, I'll just conduct the remainder of the meeting. Steve, is that okay?
Perfect.
Okay, very good. So with that, we'll move on to item number 7, staff status reports, miscellaneous items.
Okay, I will try to keep these really short. Since we had I was going to update you on some of the PEG projects, but we had a good discussion. I think I'll just add that I know that Bill Piper, our technical coordinator, along with Joe Condry, our new production assistant, have been working with Citrus Heights and are implementing a project there right now. They actually had a leaky roof, so that held that project back for a while, but the roof is fixed, and that's the latest project that's going forward. And certainly there was a lot of discussion on the PEG projects earlier. Other than that, I believe that the next meeting that we'll have, it will be in October.
Okay.
We plan to bring a final budget resolution back to your board, plus other items. But rather than cancel the meetings right now, I think I'd like to continue on with canceling at the concurrence of the chair.
Okay. So you want to cancel right now?
No, I'll just cancel
okay, you'll just work through the chair.
Of the chair. So
that's
really
worked
just
out.
informing your board of that right now.
Great. Thanks, Bob.
So there's no action items needed for item number 7.
Okay, that's it for item number 7, Bob?
Bob, did you want to report on? Okay.
So on item number 8, state franchisee and licensee reports, and I have no request to speak on this from AT&T, Comcast, or Sure West. So we will move to item number 9, which is our channel licensee and grantee reports. I have 2 requests to speak here, and that would be Liz Rhodes, and Liz will be followed by Ron Cooper.
Liz Rhodes again. Thank you very much for the motion to approve the budget. We appreciate that. Keep the report just real short. Want you to see what your dollars are kind of buying for you. We had our award night this year. A couple of you were in attendance. It was fabulous. We had over 1,100 parents and teachers and students, and we had a little section that we call the red carpet, where we have student paparazzi come out and interview students who are there expecting and hoping to win. So I just have a short video clip, 1 minute. I'd like to share part of that evening with you. So if we could roll that.
Thanks, Liz.
It really summarizes how the kids feel about this and the impact that this has made on their lives, and it's spectacular.
Welcome to the CBS 2012. My name is Ryan Fackler. We're here on the red carpet. Let's meet some of our producers. So what's the name of your video, and tell us a little bit about it?
It is a stop-motion video about internet safety.
How to start a business, and explains how to start a business, obviously.
So what's your favorite thing about making a movie? Is it filming or editing?
Filming.
Filming?
It's fun to do it.
Yeah. Just everything?
Yeah.
I have to admit, the filming is pretty exciting.
My favorite part was the editing. We had to stay over a long time, but it was actually pretty fun.
I'm just really honored to be able to come here and be a part of this whole thing. I would think it'd be great to win an award, but all in all, I think it's just great to be here and be a part of something like this.
Definitely.
I feel the same way. I'm just really excited to be here and to watch all the other videos to see what everyone else has been doing with us. It's really cool.
It's good luck tonight. High fives all around. Have a fun night, you guys.
So thank you. You can see it really makes a difference to our students. So.
Thanks, Liz. And Liz has invited me there the last few years to help present some of the awards, and it is a huge crowd and a lot of energy there. So thanks for putting that on every year, Liz. Okay, with that, Ron Cooper.
Ron Cooper, Executive Director of Access Sacramento, and again, thank you very much for funding for another year, and I think you've heard from the speakers earlier in terms of some of the exciting projects that we continue to grow and expand in. And I just wanted to thank the staff both for their help in terms of working together so productively and smoothly. It's a lot to do what they do, and we really appreciate that. And just to finish Joanne's concluding thought, it was a praise to the collective effort that's going into the Alliance for Community Media 6-State Western States Conference that's coming to downtown and Old Town October 18 19 and 20, and it's an event that's being organized by Access Sacramento, Davis Media Access, by the Metro 14 staff, and KVIE, and the Sacramento Educational Cable Consortium. So all 5 entities are working together to make it a wonderful conference. So please put that on your calendars for October 18, 19, and 20, and we'll bring some money to the downtown in helping the economy. So thank you again. We really appreciate your support.
Great. Thanks, Ron. Okay, I have no more requests to speak on item number 9. Item number 10, public comments, and I have no other requests on that. Any comments from the board before we adjourn?
I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for your leadership over the past, I guess, about a year and a half, or almost 2 years.
It's been probably 2 years, yeah, or something like that.
And
It's
again,
gone fast.
Thank you, Andy. Again, participating in some of the things that we all get invited to, but as chair, you take on those responsibilities, and certainly appreciate the way you've conducted the meetings, but also the other work that you do in concert with our executive director and staff on an interim basis, because we don't meet all that frequently, so I know they call upon you. So again, thank you for your work.
Thank you, Don, and as an add-on to that, my thanks for the staff for the wonderful support over the past couple of years. It truly makes it an easier gig to handle. So my thanks, and with that, we are adjourned for this afternoon.